What if your purpose wasn't something that you had to find, but something you could give? Service is not about losing yourself. It's about discovering who you truly are through love in action. I am Justin Gates. I am joined by my sidekick, well, you know what? You can be Batman today. I'll be Robin. I'm the
I'll
sidekick.
take it.
Michael Perry, and you're listening to the new Ashla Podcast. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast. Today we're going to talk about the power of service. It's something that's very deeply ingrained into our path. It's why we do the podcast anyway, in part. This is one of our ways to try and serve. So, and Michael said, no, we're not doing that today. I said, why? He said, because service is for suckers. Isn't that what you said? I'm pretty sure that's what you said.
Something like that. Sure.
That.
We'll go with it.
No, he didn't. But, we live in a world that really glorifies individual success and personal gain. And any act of service can feel countercultural, right?
Yeah. Oh, especially in this day and age. It's one of those things where it's like, I've always been a big fan of doing community service, getting involved, even if it's just once or twice a year is really what my goal has been through the years. And it's like, whenever I bring it up to friends, like, hey, you want to join me on this? It's almost like there's this like, ooh, why would you do that?
They're like, I just got a pain right here in my right. What? But as we approach service, this is how we see service. When we approach it through our path of light, it's not a form of submission, right? It helps us awaken. It helps us progress on the path. It helps us heal, and it helps us heal others. So it's necessary for us on this path. And we're going to explore this today, and I think it'll really help all of you out there too, if you're kind of on the fence about these things. So, because really, for us, it's a realization that our greatest fulfillment arises not from just this gross accumulation, but from contribution. This is where we come from. Accumulation is fine, but we should also contribute.
Well, again, it's like you look at millionaires and people who are rich and the chronic rates of depression across the board. It's because there's no fulfillment in obtaining goods. Yeah, you get that moment of happiness when you get that new car, when you buy that big house, when you land that big deal. You get that moment of fulfillment, but it's fleeting.
Right.
Because it's not in service to others. And I know that doesn't sound necessarily intuitive.
Right.
But it's like, have you ever helped someone and you felt that feeling of joy, of accomplishment, of living beyond yourself? And I think that's really what this comes down to, is we need to live lives that aren't so rooted in ego and in material.
Right.
We need to live within community, within helping others.
I tend to think so. When we would talk about this topic back in the day, in the old KOA days, my co-host, my brother from another mother, David Edge, he would argue this point with me, and he would say, well, yeah, but you're still doing it for yourself. Okay, look, I don't care why you're doing it. At the end of the day, it multiplies what's good in you. And if you start out doing it just so you can feel better, so what? So what? If it starts out as an ego-driven thing, so what? You're multiplying. As long as you're not using people as props, and we might get into this later, but there are tons of videos across the internet where we see people helping people or giving stuff to the homeless and stuff like this. And sometimes it really feels like they're using people as as props. No human being is a prop.
Yeah. Well, there's certain types of people that do things in volunteer work, and they post about it all over their socials. And it's like, it's all to gain that attention and that glorification of, look what I'm doing to help other people.
Right.
It's that genuine goodwill where you're acting out of the spirit of goodwill. And yeah, it can be ego-driven at first. Crap, post it to your socials that you helped out if it helps propel you forward. But there's a difference between those who do service just for the narcissistic gain of, look at me, and those who do it because of the feeling of service they get when they do that.
Right. And we're really going to talk about service, not in a grandiose way, because like a lot of things we talk about on this podcast, it's often the little things. It's often the smaller things that add up over time. Sometimes people just need the small things. So again, true service does not demand that we diminish ourselves in any way or lower yourself. In fact, to me, this is a higher thing, right? It calls us to expand, to become conduits of compassion and wisdom and understanding. There's lots of different ways to serve. So, and some people may resist this, especially if they're ego driven, because it brings up this fear of loss of control or loss of recognition or the hunger for recognition or control, right? But when we move from this ego driven ambition, which again, it could start out lots of things I've started in my life were ego driven and they were overly ambitious, right? But they led me still down the path that I've come to today. So it's not always a bad thing. Nothing is ever bad. Nothing's always good, right? There is this balance that we talk about a lot. So, but when we move to that soul driven purpose, when we serve from that point, when we serve from our hearts, we kind of enter that stream of the divine in a way where giving and receiving become the same thing. They become one.
Well, I think tying in purpose is so vital to this because, in my experience, those who have found fulfillment in the work they do and finding the jobs that resonate with them most didn't come from them chasing the material goods on the other side.
Right.
It came from what can I best build? What can I best provide to a community, to a group, to a niche that will help others in their lives, whether that's teaching, whether that's designing new things. It's all out of this passion of creating something that will bring joy or fulfillment to others.
Yeah, it radiates. All things radiate. Good things, bad things, it all radiates. And if you take this show today in the context of all the shows we've done about healing and about shadow work and about the kind of nightly philosophy and stuff that we talk about, if you take this show today in that context, it will fit in perfectly. And it will say, oh my God, okay, now I understand what he means. So, you don't have to all join the Peace Corps. I'm sure it's a wonderful organization, but I do more good here than I would with them. However, we have to find our purpose, and we all have a purpose, and a lot of us find it through service, right? This is where we find the things that we do have good passion for. So the axiom that kind of ties into this episode for today, the master can continue to give indefinitely, for his or her wealth is their knowledge, wisdom, and experience. And what this axiom reminds us is that true abundance is not measured by what we keep or accumulate, but what flows through us, the giving and receiving, service and receiving, right? It's about that flow. When we act in service, we open ourselves up as conduits, as channels where wisdom and love and healing move freely like a river. Think of it like a river. When a river gets dammed up and it creates a branch that gets stuck, right? A little pool is what we used to call it. I don't know if it's called that, but it could stagnate. And we're a lot like that. When we get dammed up and we get stagnant, our spirit grows dull in a way. When we hoard what was meant to circulate, money is not the root of all evil, as everybody always says, if it's used energetically, right? I give, I receive. I give, I receive. It keeps it flowing.
Well, just imagine if we lived in an altruistic society where everyone was trying to help everyone else. The ripple effects it leads. I mean, you can see the joy when you're volunteering at a soup kitchen or a food drive, just the gratitude and the relief. And I've seen it so many times, especially with people struggling with addiction, where it's like they go through recovery and then they get involved in recovery work, helping other people fight the same battle.
Yeah.
And it's just the ripple effects that come from it are magnificent.
And they typically create the best ones. They become the best at it. So the ethos that tie in today, I mean, they all tie into everything we do, but really the ones we'll focus on today are love and connection. Why is love so important here for this topic?
Well, because at the heart of this, even if you started this from an egoic place, love is the true thing that shines through in the end. It is the thing that gives you the most gratitude for what you're doing. It's the thing that spreads to those you are assisting. Love is at the heart of all service.
It is literally the radiant pulse of the universe, love. To me, it's the purest form of energy, and it sustains life, and it gives life reason. It gives it reason to go one more inch, one more step, one more day. And in service, we enact love, not as some sentiment, but as an action, as motion, compassion in action, empathy embodied. When we serve, I believe when we serve, we mirror the divine heart of creation itself. It's that important. Connection might be an easy one, right? Maybe both of these are, but connection is a pretty easy to understand why it's one of the important ethos today, right?
Well, it's like, man, you can get some of the best networking done when you're doing service because you're meeting like-minded people, good-spirited people.
And they're all happy. Yes.
Yeah, next to meeting people at the bar,
Not always so happy, right? I haven't been in a bar in a really long time. And there's just no rhyme or reason. I just haven't. I don't know. I guess I don't hang out in those kind of places. But yeah. Well, and when you go to places of worship, and it doesn't matter what kind of place of worship, you see that connection, and you see everybody's happy, and people will say, oh yeah, well they're just faking it on Sunday. So what? They're happy on Sunday. Or they're happy on Wednesday. I don't care. I don't worry about the minutia of looking for the reason to not like somebody. I usually let their character speak for them, right? And because we all fall, we're all flawed, we all, none of us are perfect, and nor should we ever try to be. So yeah, do I try to be the same every day? Yeah, I do. Do I always make it? No. You should have heard me cussing the guy today on the way home, dude. He stressed me out. He wouldn't, like, he like got in front of me because I was going too slow or whatever. And he wasn't brake checking me or anything, but he was just being just a Nimrod. He was just being erratic. And then he'd get out of the lane, and then he'd get back in front of me again, and then get out of the lane and back in front of me again because he couldn't get around. And I said some words to him, and I said a lot of words to him. He probably didn't hear me, but boy, I was reaching out through the forest to hope, flick him in the back of the head, knock it off. And then I said what Courtney taught us. Hey, I forgive you. I love you. Please forgive me. And that was the last thing I said to him. Probably should have been the first thing I said to him. But, I probably got to...
No, usually that's the end piece.
She'd probably give me a C+ on that effort. But yeah, so connection's really important because, of course, we believe that every being, everything is connected in this living web. Right. And service dissolves the illusion of separation. The kind of thing, the kind of separation when we say, oh, they're only good on Sunday. I hear that a lot, That's disconnection. That's an illusion of separation because you can say whatever you want to them, but they are your brother or they are your sister. Period. You are connected to the same web of the universe. The same energy, the same flow. I was talking to a coworker today, and I had explained to her that we have to be careful in what we say to others. This is why love thy neighbor as I love thyself, love thy enemy, right? It's all about loving people no matter what they are to you, because everything that comes out of your mouth, well, first, everything that you think in your head, your subconscious is picking up on it. Everything you speak, everything you think, you're speaking into a big microphone that's plugged into the back of your subconscious. So it doesn't matter who you're talking to or who you're talking about. Your subconscious does not know. So be careful what you say to others too, because everything you say to others, you're saying to yourself, right?
Yeah, well, an important part of this is, we project our own views of ourselves onto the world, whether we know it's our views of ourselves. There's people who see everyone as horrible people, hateful people. And then you have people who see the world as all good. And often it's all about an internal state they're just reflecting onto society.
Yeah.
To your point.
Mm-hmm. Except for that guy that was driving like crap. I drive good. He does not. I wasn't talking to myself. I was driving perfectly.
Yeah.
So, to kind of put this in your mind today, as we move forward, I want you guys to think about where in my life can I shift from seeking purpose to being purpose through serving with love, humility, and intention. So that's kind of the thing I want you to think about today as we move forward. So what is true service, Michael? What does that mean to you? If I say, what is real service or true service? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Acting beyond your own needs to serve the world around you is what I think of. I think about how we provide, how we give altruistically in a manner that is not for gain, but just to make the world a better place, to make someone's life a better day, give someone a better day. It is, yeah.
So a lot of people misunderstand service, as I said earlier, because they always associate it with giving until you're empty, giving everything away until you're dry, giving your last dollar and you don't eat for 3 days so someone else can eat for one. It's not a very good equivalent exchange. And when I say equivalent exchange, I don't mean that you give gift for gift, time for time. Service is not equivalent all the time. Rarely is it ever, because you're usually helping someone up, right? But it could be little things like, picking up your neighbor's paper and throwing it at their door because it's out in the middle of the street. It could be little tiny things. But saying yes when you mean no, right? People think that's true service. Or believing that being spiritual means being submissive. But true service is not self-sacrifice. This is another key word today. Key phrase. True service is not self-sacrifice. It is self-expression through purpose. Servitude operates from fear, from the belief that what we're worth depended on pleasing others. That's servitude. Service, on the other hand, flows from love, from intention, from the understanding that we are part of something greater and we're connected to that something greater together. And that by sharing ourselves, our light, our energy, our resources, whatever it is, we amplify that. We amplify the light of the world.
Well, I think there's an important note here. I mean, there's a difference between giving and helping the world around you and pouring from an empty cup, right? I mean, and because I've been guilty of that. I was one of those people who I got my worth from helping others. And when you do that, especially to your own detriment, I mean, you have to have boundaries in place with yourself to know when you are giving from a place of love and abundance and when you're giving from a place of scarcity and lack. And we have to be able to associate and discern those boundaries within ourselves and within our resources, where we are providing not to the extent of impacting our own lives to a negative degree. So for a lot of those codependents out there that are listening, because that's really who I'm talking to here, is we got to be able to discern where our needs begin and serving others and helping them with their needs begins. Because we can get lost in the enmeshment of trying to serve everyone around us while running ourselves on empty.
Yes. Servitude operates, like I said, from some kind of fear, but really it operates from lack. If you operate under servitude, you are expressing to the universe, I lack, I lack, I lack. But when you do it as an act of service, when you do it from your own abundance, then you are inviting abundance, aren't you? You are putting out, you're going to get what you put out. And as we say all the time, you don't get what you want, you get what you get what you feel, you get what you vibrate with, you get what you resonate with. So if you're resonating from a place of servitude, it's just going to be lack and suffering. But if you come from a place of service, right, then you're in harmony with the natural law, with the rhythm of the universe of giving and receiving. Because when we give from the heart, we replenish the cup.
Yeah. And that's really how you know when you're on that line. Do you feel empty after you're doing all these things? Or do you feel fulfilled and full of joy in life? Because you will feel the difference. Doesn't mean you won't be tired. It doesn't mean you won't feel like you had your work cut out for you. Because sometimes you will have a good workout and you will feel it at the end of the day. But you'll sleep easy knowing you did the right thing next to it. Was it enough? Or did I give more than I could?
Right. We're talking about the law of reciprocity. You simply cannot outgive the universe. You can't. You cannot outgive the universe because when we come to a place of service, everything returns multiplied and it flows back, and it just this beautiful thing. So another reflection for you guys to kind of put in your mind now. I want you to think about a time where you confuse the two, servitude with service. We've all done it. It's okay. And how can you start giving from devotion instead of obligation? Because obligation is a really rough thing, you know. Obligation is a pretty big shadow sometimes, especially if you have some of these other things going on, right?
Yeah, no, that's a really good way to look at it, because when you're serving from a place of people pleasing, of blurring those lines, you feel obligated to do that. Next to you feel gifted with the ability to help the people you're helping.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, wherever we cast light, it creates what?
Create shadows.
Creates, right? So that's why we always try to balance things out. So, of course, there are shadows that block true service. We talked about one earlier, ego service. What about ego service? Why is that a shadow to blocking us from true service?
Because it's a service done out of complete desire for gain, whether that's reputation, rapport, whether that's to look good. Which again, you can have a few of these things when you're starting out. Like that is normal even. But there is a difference between someone who gives and does charity because they only want the respect that comes with it, compared to someone who's actually doing it because they want to create a better place.
Right. Another one I can think of is martyrdom.
God, yeah. That's a lot of what we were just talking about. You know, it's
Yeah.
giving beyond what we have to depletion. You know, you're giving out of guilt or self-neglect. You're abandoning yourself to help everyone else. That's not service. That is martyrdom.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we give from an empty cup. As you said, we pour and pour and pour and never replenish any of that, because we are neglecting ourselves. We are in a state of martyrdom where it's just complete neglect. Saying yes when we know we should say no. So, and in this place, resentment is bred, completely exhausted all the time. And we really start to blur the lines and become confused between self-sacrifice and true love, true giving, true service. What about fear of being unworthy?
So I think this may be actually a good starting point for people who have worthiness wounds. Because it's true, there are people that only do service because it's their way of feeling like they have worth, like they have something to give, because they feel so lacking in every other area. I'll be honest, that is where my servitude journey began. But when you realize that you're doing it because you want to make change and not because it's something that gives you definition, that defines you as a good person, that transition is so powerful, because no longer is your worth tied to service, but instead it amplifies it.
Yeah, yeah. And these are really just misdirections of energy.
Yeah.
We're trying to deflect the flow. One of these overflows without boundaries. Not good boundaries set there, right? Another one withholds because of fear. But both of these separate us from the source. They disconnect us. And disconnection is hell. Connection is heaven. Disconnection is hell. But to your point, the healing path does not lie in rejecting these, but understanding them. Let's go back to understanding. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel like you're broken. You just have to adjust your focus. We need to understand where these things are coming from, whether that's unmet needs for being recognized or belonging or not feeling loved, whatever. We talk about this stuff all the time, probably to the point where you guys are going to start flicking us in the third eye. But these things are important. These things are important. Important. So where we start to focus on healing through here, right? The true service flows from being whole, integrity, and not allowing ourselves to feel like we're lacking. We have to move ourselves from lack to abundance. But before we can pour into others, we must fill ourselves, right? We must take care of ourselves. We must be self-reliable. We must be able to handle the weight of another person's pain for a moment so that they can see that there's healing ahead.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you like to pray, if you like to reflect, meditate, if you like to rest, if you like to join others in communion, whatever fills your cup back up. But you got to take care of yourself. There's a great show we did on self. I cannot think of the word, Michael. Self-care. Yeah, we did a really good show on self-care. It's about, I don't know what, 6 or 7 episodes, probably down from
Something
here.
like that.
So, but service, true service, begins with inner alignment, and we have to make sure our cup is full and that we have a way to keep it full and keep it going.
Well, and it's so important because, again, balance in all things. I think so many of us fall into two categories. Either we overgive, overwork, and we burn ourselves out trying to serve all those around us, or we get ourselves to a place of complacency where the minimal becomes almost too much. And we must learn where to harness our energy and grow this energy, as well as not overgive this energy. It's about becoming whole within ourselves in this process and being able to learn what giving our all looks like without burning ourselves out.
Yeah. Yeah, because not all service is sacred. Sometimes what we think is divine or light, or it's really just ego or some kind of trauma in disguise, some kind of coping mechanism, right? Servitude really comes from that. So we must always remember to pause and seek discernment and seek clarity before we act. We have to ask ourselves, are we serving to uplift or to be uplifted? Why are we serving, right? These are the questions we have to ask. Are we giving freely, or are we giving from a place of guilt? So of course, when these things come, as always, pause, slow down, ask yourself, is this action born of love or from something else? And if the answer is unclear, what do? We sit. We sit. Yes, we wait. We sit with it. If you need a friend, have them sit with you in it. There's no race here. There's no amount of time that, you're not on the clock, bro. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, I think an important point to make at this juncture is that you also have to learn to accept service.
Yes.
I've seen so many people who are so headstrong. I'm not going to use help from the government. I'm not going to put my weight on other people. And there's a balance where we have to learn that it's okay to give some of our weight to others. That is communion. That is true sacred connection, because we want to carry the weight of everyone else, but we refuse to give our weight to anyone else. Yeah. Because we don't want to be a burden.
That's a nasty B word, burden. I don't like hearing that word. I hear it, but I don't like hearing it.
Understandably.
Because you are not a burden. And if someone tells you you're a burden, you need to start repairing your circle of trust, right?
Yeah. Or treating you like you're a burden. You got to learn that it's okay to take up space. It's okay to go through the notions.
Yes, we all take up space, and we must, but we also must have integrity here, right? And integrity is that harmony between intention and action. We have to commit to let our truth speak honestly through what we do, not just what we say, not just what we think. In service, integrity means that we serve because it's the right thing to do, not because someone notices. It's a quiet strength. It's a quiet thing. It's not a loud performance. That's why Jesus told people to go pray in private, because they'll get more out of it and it'll be more sincere, right? Integrity keeps our channels clear, man. They keep us straight. They keep us aligned with purpose, even if we don't always know what that purpose is, but it keeps us aligned. You can learn to say yes without resentment and no without guilt.
Right.
It ensures that every act of service is clean and precise and luminous.
And authentic.
Because it's aligned with both your truth and your compassion. You are actually doing exactly what you want to do authentically. And when service is guided by integrity, it just becomes a really important expression of your highest truth. So what I want you guys to think about in this juncture is, and be honest with yourselves, where have you served from emptiness? Where have you poured from an empty cup? And how can you return to alignment with your truth and your authenticity and find balance there? So we're going to talk about service as a path of awakening.
And I really think it is.
It is. It was for you. It was for me. Heather, she is at her best when she is serving. And not in a way where she's depleted, but when she's actually making a difference. And it could be stupid little things, like little mundane things. She glows. She reaches that higher place. I feel like I do too.
Well, I think that's a key thing of human nature, right? We all want to feel like we're contributing to something bigger than us, whether we know it or not. That is hardwired into our psychology, our genetics, our very being. And one of the reasons this is a path of awakening is when we're able to jump into service It's able to help us start getting out of our comfort zone, getting out of our isolation, and we can start learning and cultivating new skills and find this feeling of contributing beyond ourselves. One of the greatest things you can do is take that action of getting involved in some kind of event. Do a couple, and you will learn so much about not just the thing you're helping with, but about yourself.
Yeah, you get a lot of perspective.
Yeah.
You get a lot of perspective. I promise you, everybody who out there who thinks they got it bad, someone's got it worse. And you meet these people and you see that they push on day by day by day. And it's actually quite amazing what we as human beings are capable of, both bad and good. You know, this is what I taught you about serving, why we focus on it so much on this path, because knowledge alone is not enough, is it? We sat down and we talked and we talked for years before I took you on as my student, as my apprentice. And you are a very knowledgeable guy. You're a reader. You know a lot of stuff. And it was like, okay, but knowledge alone is not enough. When all this insight that you have, we want to turn it into wisdom, that insight must become embodiment. You must take action. And understanding must move, not just from here, but literally through your heart and your hands, right? This is where
Beautifully said.
This is where service begins. And what service does on the path to awakening is it really does dissolve the illusion of separateness. It dissolves false perspective. You start to see the truth, whether you like it or not. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes it's crushing. Sometimes it breaks your heart into 1,000 pieces. That's why I always tell you, Michael, this path is a noble path, but it's one of heartbreak. But the fact is, when you serve, you're awakened to the knowledge that the light within me is not different than the light within you.
Right.
There is no separation there. We have individual things, quirks, and things that make us different. But the light within me is the same as the light within you. And every time we serve with conscious intention, and that could be through words or being kind or healing or just be simply sitting in the mud with somebody, just being present, we bridge that gap between the self and source. We connect even further.
Well, it's like the way I've always looked at it is it's like we're all the same light. We're all just calloused by different experiences, beliefs, and cultures. You know, it's this amalgamation of how we've internalized the world and how we view how the world works and how we fit in it.
Yeah, yeah.
But we all have the same desire at our cores, for the most part at least.
We are vessels that seek to become conduits. What I mean is, when we give, we become those vessels. When we do it with love, we become conduits. For a lot of us, the act of true service becomes really like a meditation in motion, because every gesture, every offering becomes, forgive my language, but a prayer of unity almost. I don't know how else to say it. Right? Through such giving, both of us are transformed. Both the giver and receiver are transformed. The one who serves receives humility and learns grace and gets to practice joy. The one served gets to understand what compassion looks like and feels like, that they get to feel dignified and they find hope. So it is a path of awakening, right? There's an axiom that I decided to pick for this that I thought it worked really well. And you tell me if you agree. Approach understanding with light, and darkness will never gain purchase. Why do you think that axiom fits here, if it does?
Well, I mean, just like the coaching program, Lighten the Void, when we are in our darkest moments, that is the moment we either become corrupt or we start to heal and grow. And the light is the strongest thing that we can anchor ourselves to so that we can become stronger and better. The light is where all the power resides. The light is the beacon in which that can save us from anything. And I'm not talking about some woo-woo religious thing. I'm talking about seeing the good in the world, the good in humanity, seeing the good within ourselves no matter how much we feel battered, broken, and beaten. The light is the most powerful resource we can utilize to gain footing and not let the darkness overcome us.
This kind of service we're talking about is one of the purest forms of understanding. And you're never going to understand it here completely, but you understand it here. Right? Of the heart. And when we act and serve through the light, our very presence becomes a remedy to darkness, even if just for a moment. Because what we're trying to do is light that fire, light the torch in someone else so that they can illuminate too. And look, let's be honest, we may not always have the power to change a situation. And a lot of times we don't, to be quite honest. But we always have the power to illuminate it, to bring it to truth, to bear it right in front of everyone. And again, even the smallest act, a word of kindness, just listening, does that. It can shift an entire field of energy. One person can walk into a room and the room just shifts one way or the other. We get to decide which way it goes. If we are that beacon, right?
Well, I think an important notation here, especially when it comes to the darkness and the light, just to not backtrack too much, but it's like when you're in that void, service is such a powerful way to get out of yourself, get out of your situation, and find more light. You know, you brought up earlier how it's like you see people who have it even worse than you do. And I'm not a big fan of saying someone has it worse to you, because it's all about everyone has their own rock bottom. Yes. Everyone has their own field of darkness that impacts them differently. Yes. But service and faith are two of the most powerful resources we can tap into when we are struggling to find hope, to find the good in life.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, we should never compare. This isn't a game. We don't compare. We don't race. We don't, right? But be open for your perspective to be shifted, to be changed, because it will. If you truly do this, it will. And it may not always feel like a good thing, because then again, you have to start facing some shadows, and you have to start, but never do it with shame. Never do it with blame. You know, so.
Resistance is the cost of growth.
Yes, it is. So something I want you guys to think about through this segment here. When was the last time you felt truly connected through service? And if you've never served, imagine what that would have felt like for you. In the moment you are. Think about where it sits in your body. Think about the things you're thinking. Don't judge them. Just let them, right? Just let them do their thing. And if you have, what awakened in you when you gave from love rather than expectation? Because when you do that, I can tell you, it hits you like a Mack truck sometimes. So let's talk about some everyday acts of service. And, we like to think of service as something grand, because this is what we see on TV. This is what we see on the internet, on YouTube. Some mission or some ministry or a calling that requires heroic effort. People think that's what true service is and what purpose is. But true service lives where?
In the heart?
In the heart and in every day. Every single day is where true service lies. It's everyday things. It's everyday moments. They exist in the quiet choices we make when no one's watching, when we hold space for other people, when we speak gently, when anger would be easier, just to do things right, or give our time to nurture life in simple ways. So listening without judgment, right? That's an act of service.
Yeah. That's some of the most powerful conversations I've had with people is when they open up about their crap and they realize there's no judgment. It's a safe space to talk about their demons, their failures, their losses, and just to be seen as human instead of being judged critically.
Returns their dignity. Encouraging someone's growth. That's an act of service.
You see someone striving in life who's trying to work on something and getting a little better every day, let them know. Man, that lights people up.
Yeah, it does. It does. Sharing knowledge or sharing comfort or sharing time. Those are acts of service, everyday acts of service.
Just helping someone you see struggling. I remember it was a couple weeks back. I was checking out at the grocery store and a lady had a whole bunch of groceries, this old lady, and she's bagging them all up, and just jump on the end, help her finish bagging them up or helping her take them to her car. It takes 5 minutes of your time and makes their whole day.
Yeah, because their whole world may not be around anymore. We don't know what people go through. We don't know what people have seen or dealt with. And even if they're crotchety and mean and nasty sometimes, a little bit of perspective goes a long way. Because you know what? If, knock on wood, if she passed away on me anytime soon, I'd be mean and angry and miserable too. But I wouldn't share that with anybody. They would just see me as being mean and maybe get bit a few times, So we don't know what people are going through. And these all sound like small things, but they're not. Really, they're sacred. We don't measure greatness by a scale in service, right? We measure it, if we measure it at all, which we usually don't, by sincerity. So every action infused with compassion becomes that service. It becomes everything good in you in motion. So, and again, the most profound things people do rarely make the headlines because they ripple through the hearts and they ripple through the families and the generations. People will remember you for little things. And this restores faith. You brought up faith earlier. This kind of thing restores faith where faith has faded.
I know, it's like when I talk to people about doing community service and stuff like that, it's like I just want to restore the faith in goodwill. And there's goodwill in humanity, and it's out there. Because so many people do just get so lost in feeling like humanity is so messed up, but that ripple it has, it spreads. You do a nice thing for someone, and then they do something nice. It spreads outward like wildfire.
It does. Good often comes in its own time. It's one of our axioms of light. And this axiom is fitting because it reminds us that true service is not transactional. It is timeless. Because we really don't ever see the full impact of our kind word. Right?
No.
Sometimes we do. Sometimes we're involved and we get to see it through to completion. But most times we don't. You know, every kind thing we do, every nice thing we do for somebody, for a stranger, we never see them again, right? But just remember this, in that current, in that flow of creation, nothing ever offered in light is ever lost. It's not lost on them. And again, it ripples out. Every seed that we plant in love will bloom when the time is right. So we don't do these things so we can see the ending, so we can see just how much impact we had. Just imagine that you already had the biggest impact that you could ever have. And that it's not up to us to see that through. Sometimes we never do. Most times, I would say. So we've got to make sure we don't get attached to that, to recognition or to the result even. Because that's kind of a trap too, right?
Yeah.
So, do you have any closing words for today's show? It's a little quick show today. I think this one's going to be about, 35, 40 minutes. So, kind of got through.
That.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I got to say is don't let service be something that percolates in your mind, something you consider doing. We talk about action all the time, and this is one of those things. Don't let it ruminate in your mind. Sign up right now. Sign up to go do something. Get yourself out there. You know, if you're struggling with isolation, I heavily implore you to do this because this is how you build genuine connections, good connections. And it helps you break out of that shell, out of that pattern you're trapped in. Service is one of the most powerful things you can implement in your life because it helps you become something greater than you currently are. So, again, don't let this be an idea. Let this be an action. Let this be a call to action to take a step, sign up for something this month.
Well said. At the heart of true service is surrender. We're not surrendering power, not surrendering our boundaries, but we're surrendering our egos. Service is not about being needed. It's about being available, right? Available to light, to love, to the quiet prompting of the soul. When you act in service, you become an instrument, a beacon of divine harmony and light, a vessel through which grace can move freely into the world. Every time we serve, no matter how small the act, we reaffirm one unshakable truth. We are all connected. We are all sacred. We're all one. Because in the light, there is no hierarchy of giving or receiving. The one who feeds a neighbor and the one who comforts a stranger are both weaving the same fabric of connection and compassion. Service does not belong to the saints and the sages. It belongs to all of us, and it lives within each of us. We awaken this through choice. So let your service become your prayer or your meditation, your legacy. Give not because the world demands it, but because your soul overflows with it. So I had an exercise, but then I kind of did some exercises throughout the show. So I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, I don't like this exercise today. I think we covered it pretty good throughout the segments. So we're going to move into the affirmations of our 5 affirmations for today. In serving others, I awaken the light within myself. Every act of kindness expands the web of connection around me. Service is not depletion. It is divine circulation. My giving flows from abundance, not obligation. Through selfless action, I honor the sanctity of all life. And I know those little exercises, those little things were journal prompts, but here's some extra ones for you go-getters. When have I felt most alive while serving others? What made that experience sacred? Where in my life do I give from obligation rather than love? What gifts or wisdom can I share that would bring more light into the world? How does my ego resist service? And what fear lies beneath that resistance? Yeah, that one, I felt a little tinge right here. How can I make service a natural expression of gratitude, not just an act of effort? Good show today, my friend. Thank you so much for your help, as always.
Of course.
Couldn't have done it without you. Heather, thanks for lurking in the background there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you check out our socials, the YouTube, the Facebook, the TikTok. What else, Michael?
Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify. YouTube. I think I said YouTube. Check it out twice. If I said it twice, check it out twice. It's all good. And check out our website, newashla.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We love you guys with love and gratitude. Ad lucem.
Ad lucem.